It's Retail Media Thursdays. I'm Megan Harbold, VP of Strategy here at Skai, and I am here with Matt Larson from Collective Measures. Cheers, Matt. Welcome.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Thanks
go
for
ahead
having
and
me.
introduce yourself and Collective Measures?
Yeah, so I'm Matt Larson. I'm the VP of Media and Connection Strategy at Collective Measures. Collective Measures is an independent ad agency based on the Minneapolis area. We specialize in all sorts of different types of media, as well as have deep capability in analytics. And of course, why I'm here, we do a lot of retail media. So
Awesome.
excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, we have some good questions for you. Before we get into that, do you want to tell us a little bit about your peak of the week? Professional or personal?
Peak of the week. Well, I think coming here is probably my peak of the week.
This beer.
Yeah,
it's pretty
this
dang
beer is
good.
pretty good. Thank you, Midwest Coast Company. But no, I used to come down to the West Loop a lot, and I just love this area. And it's 1st of October, and it's beautiful, and it's sunny, and it's warm. So
Yeah.
I think it's a personal peak of the week. I'm just happy to be here.
Great. Well, let's go ahead and get started. You mentioned retail media. I know you guys also work a lot with non-endemic brands. In other words, brands who maybe are advertising on a retailer site but not selling the products there. What would you say is kind of happening in this space in terms of their interest for retail media and taking advantage of this new opportunity?
Yeah, well, retail media is pretty hard to miss right now. I mean, It's literally everywhere. And if you look at some of the growth projections, it's insane in terms of I saw eMarketer predicted by 2028 that 1 out of 4 media dollars are going to be spent with retail media, which seems absurd, but that's where we're heading. So non-endemic brands are definitely taking notice, as well as obviously the people that are selling on sites. But a lot of them are not sure how to jump in right now, right? A couple different reasons for that. One, not all networks allow it, believe it or not. So I know I have some clients that are partners with key retailers, whether that be the Home Depot or Target, and they would love to actually leverage some of those audiences, but they don't have the ability to. So that's certainly a barrier. I think lack of knowledge and understanding about how to do it and how to jump in is probably the number one. You hear retail media and you obviously think right away about search and e-commerce and selling on, site. And you're like, okay, well, that's not for me. Great that it's growing, but not sure how to really utilize that. So just that lack of knowledge about, hey, I can use it, and all these different ways that I might be able to use it, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're trying to do life cycle, or whether you're trying to do basket affinities, or target people that are big spenders, low spenders, deal seekers. So a lot of ways to get in the game, but I think there's a big lack of knowledge about how to get in the game. Other challenges are just budgetary. Where does the budget live and where does it come from? Especially as you start using retail media more above the line and up the funnel. Sometimes it's you feel like, oh, that should be living in a performance budget versus a brand budget.
Yeah.
So I think the number one thing is just lack of education and understanding of what the opportunities are for non-endemics.
Totally. I think the battle of brand versus trade is budget-wise is definitely something we see pretty consistently being called out.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's I think an organizational kind of siloed situation, and that's very true. I've worked with a lot of endemics as well, and it's true in those walls, right? So, hey, that budget lives within the retail media kind of team, or the shopper marketing team, or the performance team, and not necessarily in at play for brand teams. But if you're launching a new product or coming out with your new brand campaign, and you sell a lot at Walmart, it's wouldn't you want all the Walmart customers to know about your new product that's available at Walmart? So whether it's endemic or non-endemic, I see a lot of barriers, just organizational silos, and where does the budget live?
Yeah.
But with non-endemics, I think it is just more of the lack of understanding and knowledge about how to utilize it. And it's not right for every brand.
Yeah, is there something that retailers could be providing to them besides kind of continuing to try and educate that market or that particular kind of audience that they're going after? Is there something in terms of data or something else that they could do to really convince them that this is the time to try it?
I mean, I think just their sales forces need to operationalize in ways that other media companies have historically, and get out in front of people and kind of share all that's available for them. So I think it's just like foot on the ground and people on the pavement, right? But additionally, case studies of how things have worked, and sharing them more globally. Measurement is going to come up a lot in our conversation, I think.
Yes.
But explaining on how you can measure these types of targeting opportunities effectively alongside some of your other tried and true things, whether that's contextual, behavioral, or whatever. So I think of anybody, they're the people that are best suited to be able to provide that education to non-endemics. And I think there's so much opportunity right in front of them with their endemic partners that they just haven't yet expanded out there.
Yeah.
But if the space continues to grow like we expect it to, I think it's a matter of time before they do start mobilizing, to better...
to bring that maturity up, basically.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you were kind of teeing this up when we talk about measurement, big buzzword of the week and or the year, incrementality. Again, endemics or non-endemics, there's a lot of even questions still today of how to even define this for your own organization, kind of lots of varying ways to do that.
Yep.
What are you seeing as like a tried and true way to showcase incrementality? What's your formula?
Ooh, I wish there was a tried and true.
I wish.
I mean, incrementality, it's definitely top of mind, and it has been for some time, and not just for retail media, but for all channels, right?
Right.
The number one way that I've seen it done effectively tends to be with geo-targeting and geo-holdouts and things of that nature, and that works really, really well in a lot of channels. However, within retail media, sometimes that there's limitations to even be able to do geo holdouts, So that makes the space specifically or extra challenging, right? However, I think so. The answer is there is no silver bullet, right?
Of course.
But different partners and different networks are on different maturity scales and allowing for different things. I think what I would like to see all the networks do is actually start partnering more with third-party measurement. There are some that do now that allow you to work with like a Circana for a lift study, right? Obviously in the endemic space, or other third-party partners that can help, see some of those, changes based on essentially, isolating individual users and then seeing how they actually register at the cash register, right?
Yeah.
So third-party measurement, I think, is a big part of the game. I would love to see inherent tools, within the networks themselves. I think the networks are often at odds, especially like in the search space and whatnot, about providing those tools and what we might actually learn about that. I think there's some fears. Same with like Google, is like, hey, we know you care about incrementality. We've heard that before. And I know they could give us the tool very simply, but they don't always want to. So there might be some areas where they're like, well, we don't want to open up the measurement floodgates on that as well, because we might see things get less funded in brand search or retargeting and things of that nature, right? So,
almost like misaligned goals, right?
Yeah.
The vendors, in the case of the retailer, a vendor or the brand advertiser, right, is looking for that transparency in order to decide where to put their dollars, but the retailer is deciding, I don't want to give you that because then you'll take those dollars away from me.
Right.
Because you'll see that actually someone else is performing better, so it forces them to actually have to be providing better performance, and around and around that goes.
Well, right. Well, and I think it's even not about comparing partner to partner. Like, when we start thinking about how one network will do it versus the other, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
But even they have all this great volume around like the lower funnel, that's return on ad spend terms or retargeting strategies. And they worry that if they provide incrementality, either testing or just measurement, that's going to get taken away and then go somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
I think what they would realize if they allowed for more measurement opportunities within their system, that they would see their own networks get funded up the funnel more, because if incrementality is done right, it should start to see how some of those, more prospecting or acquisition type tactics are actually bringing people in. Beyond incrementality, if they can start looking at lifetime customer value and how that brings people through the life cycle and repeat purchase and all that, they sort of tell you these different things, but they don't necessarily allow you to measure it and see it in tangible ways that can help us, either convince the marketers or the C-suite or whoever it might be to open up the spend across the path to purchase.
Yeah.
So at this time, we certainly have different strategies and tactics that we deploy, but it's so different between each network or each instance. And retail media is a little bit more challenged than other channels that have more ability for us to run our own tests, like geo holdouts, like where I started.
Yeah. I think so. This kind of concept of closing the loop, right? Bringing kind of, again, that transparency around how the upper funnel is impacting that lower funnel and the conversion in the world of retail media. One of the more advanced networks is obviously Amazon and providing that. And one of the ways they do provide that data is through their cloud, basically the clean room solution. Mm-hmm. So this kind of concept of clean rooms isn't necessarily new, but it's definitely picking up traction because of this kind of need to find how to close the loop in measurement. Yeah. Are you seeing that with your customers, or more and more investing in those types of technologies?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of traction in the space. I'm a big fan of what a clean room can offer. With now Google sort of cookies are gone, cookies are back, cookies are gone, cookies are back.
Make up your mind.
And they've really obviously pumped the brakes now. We've seen kind of a sigh of relief happen, and some people are slowing down. So I think we've lost a little bit of momentum in that space. However, I do think it's where we're going to end up. And if you think about what the promise of a clean room can be, whether that is through retail media or not, it's just to be more people-oriented versus browser-oriented versus, device-oriented. So unified kind of, not one-to-one, but like identifiable advertising, right? That allows us to control frequency across channels, that allows us to measure more effectively, all of those different things, right? So I am seeing definitely clients maybe slow down on like their pursuits of like their own CDPs and maybe a little less testing with the clean room types environments, unless they already have the big giant large data set themselves and they're able to leverage that and work with the clean rooms for more of a targeting standpoint. I think the hard thing using clean rooms for measurement is all of a sudden you're bringing in all of these different types of resources. So as a digital marketer coming up in the business of, hands-on keyboard, platform activation, those types of things, we're like very scrappy and quick and ready to test and learn and change and optimize.
Yeah.
When you get into the clean room type environments, we bring in developers, we bring in, different types of individuals, different marketers, different priorities, all those different things. And I think that makes it more challenging as well to fully utilize it from a measurement capability standpoint. However, the opportunity is definitely there to really see the value. Yeah. If people are able to fully take advantage.
So it's kind of like using them for bigger, longer term decisions because it takes more time to kind of ask it the right question, get to the meat of what you're trying to solve versus that really quick turnaround of the day-to-day practitioner. Right. It's not quite there yet.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think Amazon Cloud, that's one where there are certainly opportunities to get that in front of the hands-on keyboard folks and have some insights. But I think it is for longer, more controlled measurement. And some of those opportunities I was talking about, like understanding, the whole path to purchase, understanding lifetime customer value, those types of things. Yeah. That is where I think a clean room can be very effective, but not every brand has the resources on their side either to use that, right? And it just takes a whole different type of talent and a whole different perspective to try to bring that through. And it doesn't always move at the speed that you want it to. Yeah. It also takes a lot of discipline and rigor around measurement itself to ask it those right questions, as you described it. And to be methodical about waiting and seeing and evaluating and trusting, right? Yes. Because what you see in these advanced analytics solutions sometimes aren't, one-to-one what we see in like platform ROAS, right? And it's hard to say, hey, we're going to optimize away from really strong platform ROAS because if we look at the big picture, it's a better story. Yeah. It takes a lot of convincing for people to do that. But I do think, if we flash forward and we're back at Midwest Brewing 20 years from now, we're going to see clean rooms as, more of the norm, or just database sort of marketing, advanced analytics, one-to-one addressable targeting, those types of things are going to be prevalent across, many channels. Yeah. And I do think the promise of this is one of the major reasons why we're seeing a lot of the growth in retail media.
Yeah. I think if retailers hear the call of providing more data, but in a room, right, where it can be a little bit more accessible, but also just like up to the user how they want to pull that data, and then similar to like ChatGPT, right? Like you're going to get better at prompting it to find the right data.
Yeah.
Like things will evolve, maturity will happen, and it'll be much more useful.
Right.
Still doesn't quite answer the question though of kind of the on-site, off-site, offline, and in-store, like bridging those silos, then also bridging those silos across all these walled gardens, right? So this kind of cross-channel attribution challenge, which again, you also kind of alluded to earlier, maybe let's think about it in terms of within the agency world, how are you maybe restructuring your organization to deal with this reality of like, we have to be cross-channel in our strategies, in our execution, in our measurement? Yeah. Are you making big changes, or how you treat the business maybe a little differently than you would have?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of tough, challenging questions.
Listen, if it was easy, we wouldn't have an interesting
We'd all
conversation,
be doing it,
right? Yeah.
But yeah, you said it, like individual retailers may be able to provide us a picture of what's going on from an omni-channel perspective across their path to purchase. However, when we start comparing what's going on with Target, what's going on with Walmart, what's going on with Amazon, et cetera, all of those different attribution models might be different. They're different windows. They're measuring brand halo differently. Their lifetime value might be available in one, not the other. So it's really hard when we start trying to optimize between platforms to normalize all of those things, to try to have, hey, we have this one universal source of truth, and that's what we're going to use. It's going to allow us to effectively, optimize across all of those different things.
Yeah.
Right. So in a world where measurement's fragmented, there's all these different ways of looking at it. We have to do our best to try to find, what are the most liked metrics and what are we going to use for those comparisons, and make the best decisions for the questions that we want to ask. Right. In terms of like how we're structuring and setting up agencies to accomplish that, or maybe you're alluding to even just structuring agencies across all these different channels and activation platforms and all of that. Especially as retail media networks go beyond on-site and get into programmatic, they get into social, they get into, expanding.
Up the funnel, down the funnel,
literally all
everywhere.
things to all people, right?
Exactly.
It becomes a challenge to operationalize that, because in a perfect world, we'd have these practitioners that knew all the platforms, and we could have one cohesive strategy.
Right.
And they'd be able to optimize fluidly, and measurement would be beautiful. But the reality is most people have grown up in these different spaces. If I'm a social marketer, I'm a search marketer, I'm a retail marketer, I'm a programmatic person, right? And those different skill sets just don't, come easy. It requires a lot of depth. Bringing the whole retail picture and managing, all of those different elements across the entire funnel needs a really broad perspective, right? So that's the way that I've learned one thing in my many years at agencies is I've toyed with a lot of different operational models, a lot of different team structures, and there really isn't a right and wrong, just really different pros and cons. Okay. What I've found to be most effective over a lot of tinkering, I think, is to have some strategists that came from depth and platform experience, maybe not, within all of those verticals, but some of it, kind of live up here on the strategy angle, and then keep some people that just love turning the dials, love making the numbers go the right direction, hands on keyboard, and kind of have that sort of like dual structure where I have my breadth with some people that understand, hey, there's different objectives that we're trying to achieve, whether that's up and down the funnel, left and right to retailer, different channels, but then have the people in the platforms that just really understand the nuances and can maximize that. So that's how we've sort of have it set up now. And I've worked at organizations that have it set up differently. I've had it, worked at organizations that have it set up similarly. Yeah. And it's all about what works for your group and your teams, and for the talent that you have, right? I mean, if you have been growing a lot of very well-rounded platform individuals, maybe you can have, one team on a whole body of retail work or what have you. But, if you don't have it, don't try to force it, because you might actually have than poor execution across all the different channels.
Yeah.
And that's not what you want either.
Wouldn't it just be so nice if you could just hire a unicorn after a unicorn who knows every single channel, how to optimize every single network?
Yeah,
If only.
they don't grow on trees.
Yeah. All right, Matt. Well, let's cheers real quick because we are about to go into our rapid fire round.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going
excited
to
for this.
ask you 5 random things. They're all going to be in the same kind of theme. And they all have to do with Chicago since we are sitting here in lovely Chicago. Now, I know you're not from Chicago.
Not a Chicago native, no.
But I did do just like the little bit of peeking on your website, and that says you're an aspirational musician.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to connect music in Chicago. And
Oh,
I'm going
boy.
to ask you, true or false, which style of music kind of comes from this area or grew up in Chicago? Okay?
All right.
True or false? Chicago is known as the birthplace of the blues.
True.
That was an easy one. You better have got that one right. Okay. True or false?
Now you're making me nervous.
Chicago was the first city to popularize heavy metal music.
Ooh. False.
Nailed it. Good job. The house music genre originated in Chicago during the 1980s. True or false?
That I believe is true.
True. Oh my gosh, 3 for 3.
for
This
three.
is amazing. Chicago is famous for its contributions to jazz, particularly in the 1920s. True or false?
Yeah, I think it went from New Orleans to Chicago, right? Yeah?
4 out of 4.
All right.
Oh my gosh. Okay, last one. Punk rock music originated in Chicago in the early 1970s. True or false?
I don't think that's true.
It is false.
Yes.
While Chicago had a punk scene, the genre was generally attributed to New York and London.
Wow.
Good job.
I did it.
Nailed it. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was a great conversation. I look forward to hanging out next year at Midwest.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers again.
Cheers.